Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. In this episode, PragueHF shares her road from studying law and business in Prague to starting out in a commercial banking rotational program in Germany. We learn about why, when she transferred to London, that she decided to stay even though it meant switching banks, and how she approached her big jump to a buy-side credit fund in the past year. Also, just a quick apology to the listeners. I know it's been a few weeks since I released an episode. It's just been crazy busy with the launch of the new WSO financial modeling courses, so that's kind of backed us up, but we plan to keep rolling these out. The goal is, again, still going twice a week every Sunday and Thursday. If we can't hit that, we'll definitely be releasing at least once a week going forward, so stay tuned. Hi, PragueHF. Thanks so much for joining the Wall Street Oasis podcast.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Great to be here.
So to get started, it'd be great to just get a little short summary bio for everybody.
Sure. So my sort of background is legal background. Actually, I studied law, and then pretty much by chance I got into banking and went into graduate program in one of the commercial banks, and from there jumped sort of from one country to another, and ended up in leverage finance, which I did for sort of 6 years. And from that, I joined then a credit hedge fund a year ago.
Very cool. Fun times. Okay, so in terms of looking all the way back to undergrad to university, you went to school in Prague, correct?
Yes.
And when you were back doing that degree, were you thinking I'm going to be in finance, or you were thinking then maybe was law kind of on the horizon for sure, or is it something you kind of fell into?
No, it was pretty much law actually, because I studied law and business, so it was more like, but it was targeting, being a business lawyer. Then from Prague, I went to Germany and did.
But why were you thinking business law? What interested you in that?
So to be honest, it was my friends. A lot of them studied law, and so we were sort of a group of guys who were quite interested in, like, it's more about like arguments and presentation, because I as well did like debating, where you sort of present arguments, and so I like that aspect of it.
Yep.
And so that's why law was, until pretty much before I started to search for a job, it was the way to go. I as well did all my internship in law firms. So
it looks like you kind of overlapped. There's a degree also with law and business at a different university.
Yes. So yeah, I sort of studied way too much.
You did a lot. Yeah, you did a lot.
Yeah, but that's the difference between continental Europe and sort of the Anglo-American system, where in sort of, if you are in Germany, Czech Republic, or any France, you need to have a master degree.
Yep. And
plus, you don't pay for the studies, right? So what many people do in order to differentiate themselves, they study to universities at the same time.
Makes sense.
So that's why I started actually studying international relations, then figured out I want to do law, did law and business, and then from Prague, I wanted to go to abroad, and so went to Germany and studied law and finance there, where I got a little bit of a glimpse to finance, and that's why at the end I ended up in finance, because I didn't want to go back to Czech Republic.
So tell me about that decision, where you were at. What about finance, that glimpse of finance, made you think, hey, I want to do this? Or is it just because of job prospects, you being able to stay in Germany?
Yeah, it was actually more of the latter.
That's honest. That's fine. You're saying, hey, I can actually get a job and stay in Germany. I don't have to go back to Prague.
Exactly. If you want to be a lawyer, you need to be in your country. It's really difficult in continental Europe, where each country has different jurisdiction, and you need to be qualified lawyer. I studied in that country for 5-6 years in order to practice law. So that was not really an option. I already studied for 6 years, so definitely didn't want to repeat that. So it was
you had enough finance where you could actually get a job. Or tell me about how
that's the fun part, right? I would say, back, hindsight, no, I didn't. But because back then I couldn't really even read balance sheet, income statement. Like, I had no real idea about these things. But I went to an interview, first interview in banking. It was for a commercial bank for their graduate program. And to my, I was lucky because the whole day it was one, super Saturday, but it was all about soft skills pretty much. Presentation, you read something, you present something, but it wasn't really much finance there. So even when I came to the last interview, when it was about the job itself, they were more like telling me what I will be doing. They were not really asking me any technical questions or anything like that. So after the day I got an offer, I was like, oh yeah, that's easy, right? So I thought, let's try other interviews at investment banks. And then I realized how different that is.
So tell me about what was so different. So this was a commercial bank, basically trying to bring you in. This was in Munich, I assume, or in a large city. And so you were interviewing for this position. It was very much like fit, almost like you had the job already. Was it because they just was it low salary kind of?
No, it was a good job, but I just wanted to see what are the other options. And
so how did you get those investment banking internships? Is this before you graduated, right?
No, it was not great. So it was all the position for the analyst program. So I never did an internship in banking, which obviously is a problem, in particular if you're in Germany or England, right? Yeah. Because many of these jobs, analyst jobs, are actually recruited from the interns.
Yeah. Do you know what the percentage of the analyst class are filled by the interns in London or Germany? Approximately?
Don't know, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. In the US, it's like 80+% usually. And
I think it will be very similar.
This year, it's almost like 100% because because it's they're not hiring as much, I think, given everything that's going on.
I remember. So one of the investment banks, I got to the last round where we were 4 people, and 3 of them were interns, and I was the only one who was not intern. And they chose still the 2 people they were interns.
Yeah.
And they said that the reason why they knew the 2 people, like they said, we really liked you, but at the end we just were more comfortable hiring someone who we knew, which is fair enough.
Yep.
I guess. But
how the world works. So tell me how you even got that interview, that banking interview, and did they ask you technicals even though you didn't know them?
So at the investment bank, so I had quite a few, and so at the beginning I was clueless. I'll be honest. One I got through. It was. I think it was actually during my internship, which I still did in a law firm, and I sort of then mentioned that I'm looking for going to banking, and so the partner, he used to work for one of the investment banks, so he arranged me an interview there. It was my first one at investment bank. Oh, and that went really bad because that was the first time when I realized, okay, how much I don't know. So, but basic questions like just walk me through the LBO model, right, or what LBO is. And you sit there and like, oh, okay. But the good thing is like you do 1 or 2 and realize, okay, this is what I need to learn. So I sort of subscribed to these lovely, preparation courses online and started to really go through the basics to being able to model an LBO, and then sort of learned it all on myself. And so when I got then one of the sort of to the Super Saturday and one of the investment banks, then I could pretty much answer any technical questions, right? You ask me.
I'm surprised you're asking lots of LBO questions. It sounds like more private equity interviews, but okay. Maybe
this one was sort of M&A leverage fund.
Lev fin. Yeah, that makes sense. So you end up starting at a bank in Germany, though, correct? Or
yes, I did. Yeah.
So tell me about that, and then how you transitioned to London.
Yeah, so I joined them for a graduate program, so which was good that you had your target position, but you were sort of rotating in different departments. And I must say, when I joined, as I told you, I did not really know what I'm doing. So I sort of joined, it was like trade finance, but I realized relatively quickly that that's not what I would like to do or what excites me. So
what is trade finance? Can you define that? Like, what were you doing day to day?
Yeah,
like settling trades and stuff?
Yeah, it's like supply chain finance. So you're helping companies finance their working capital needs.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, so you're doing like loans on like AR and
sort of more. Yeah, the AR, account receivables and stuff. So you're financing that, and there's like reverse factoring and funny stuff, but it's not investment banking exactly.
It's not investment banking. Okay, it's finance, but it's not investment banking.
It is exactly.
So you knew that going in, though, correct? You just kind of
I knew that, but I obviously back then I didn't know what it means. So it was more like, oh, they are looking for someone with a legal background, so
Yep. And so how was the pay? How was the pay coming out of school there? You now had your master's in law and in finance, right?
The pay.
Yeah, how was the pay? Do you remember around what that was?
Yeah, back then it was 50K.
50 euros?
Yes.
Yep. And then it's not bad actually. It's pretty good. So coming right out of school. So then you have a master's though. So it's not for a master's. It's a little low, but for a job right out of school, you're kind of your first real job. It's not bad. So you're there for a little over a year.
Yeah. And
And
so I managed to sort of rotate to other team, which
Mhm.
was ratings advisory. And, for some good reason, I sort of there I learned all the balance sheet and income statement, what you do actually, and managed to persuade them they keep me there. So I managed to get to the investment banking part of the business, and then they sent me to London to the leverage finance high
Oh,
yield.
so that company sent you to
Yes,
okay, so
yes,
that got you into the London market, which was
exactly. That's
which
why,
was
in
big.
hindsight, they shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. They're going to lose you. But
Yes,
that's
because
yeah, that's
yeah,
that's now you have kind of the world is your oyster in London, right? It's such a big hub of
yeah, there you
bank.
realize how big difference it is.
Okay, so tell me
Because
how you started interviewing, how you started networking, or what you did to kind of start doing other interviews. Did you know you wanted to jump to another firm? Were you always looking for like more the front office?
no, so I wanted to stay in London. So after 2 months here, so I realized, okay, this is like I'd like to stay here. I don't really want to
Yeah.
go back. So obviously, you start see what's the possibilities internally, but then you say, okay, well, if that doesn't work, then what is
Why
the
did you like
possibility?
London so much over Munich?
It's just, frankly, if at the beginning of the career, you just, at least for me, it was the work was much more interesting.
Hmm.
It was longer hours, but like you really do more interesting deals. The people who you work with are mostly ex-investment bankers, even
Hmm.
if you work for a commercial bank. And just I thought that the environment is just much higher paced than it was in
And
Germany.
that was at the same company.
Yes.
So it wasn't necessarily a Munich versus London thing. It was just you wanted to stay in London because of your move there had kind of given you a higher level work that was more
Yes.
interesting. Okay, that makes sense. So, but then they weren't agreeing. You were supposed to only do a rotation in London and then go
Yeah,
back.
exactly. They wanted to that I come back, and
Hmm.
in the team where I was, I think the team sort of wanted to have me stay there, but then didn't have FTE, and that's like in a bank, it takes time, and then
Yep.
you may go back, and then they promise that maybe you come back to London again at some point, but I was a little impatient, I guess.
There's no guarantee on the headcount being allocated there or whatnot. So tell me a little bit about how that interview process started when you were in London. Obviously, I assume you started looking because when you
Yeah,
started getting that news.
yeah, I started looking, and honestly, just sort of the old-fashioned, you put your CV on eFinancial Careers, and
Hmm.
I got a call from a headhunter and arranged me an interview, and it went, pretty much within 2-3 weeks, I got the offer. So it was
Wow,
very, very quick and very smooth.
great. And so tell me a little bit about the what you were doing at this. This is a larger bank, right, in London.
Yes,
The
it's
type.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
another commercial bank, but
Hmm.
when I joined them, so the area, the leverage finance, high yield, they were quite building up and growing the team, so it was the right time to sort of join them. And yeah, I was doing then the similar thing what I did in the previous sort of.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about kind of what that job was. What was it like? And it sounds like you got promoted really fast, which was good.
Yeah,
So,
so it was in leverage finance and
mhm.
doing sort of in particular, high yield bonds, originations, structuring of the deals, and obviously then you try to sell it. Obviously, your sales does it, but it was a lot. So at the beginning, it's a lot of obviously presentations, modeling, and the usual sort of supporting the senior guys in credit process and for pitches for clients to win business.
What was the hardest transition coming out of that first bank into the second?
Uh, I don't know. It was actually pretty
It was
good,
smooth
pretty smooth. Yeah,
because you
I
were kind of
was.
doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was doing exactly. I was doing the same thing as I did the last 3 months in the other firm.
You
So
felt comfortable. Okay.
I felt pretty comfortable.
The
I joined.
modeling, there was no steep learning curve on the modeling. Maybe that was at the previous firm.
Yeah, no, it was. I by then I already learned what I needed to learn.
What did
I
you need to
think.
learn? What do you for the listeners that are interested in high yield or running this? It's I guess traditionally they call it more like that's like almost like the sales and trading desk, like, or the high
Yeah, it's
yield
not.
desk, or yeah.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? So
Hmm.
in investment banks, if you say high yield, then it will be the syndicate typically desk or yeah cells. But in the commercial banks, you have sort of leverage finance split sometimes between the loans and the bonds.
Got it.
But what you are doing, you are originating high yield transactions. So you go to a client, pitch that they should do a bond or a loan, and then you structure.
It's exploding now because right, because it's so cheap. Every financing's so cheap.
Exactly. Well, in Europe we have it cheap for already quite a while.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. So it's
not high yield; it's no yield.
No yield. Exactly. Like all subordinated debt yielding like 5% or whatever, or 3%, whatever it is there. That's crazy. Okay, yeah, people chasing yield, going down the risk curve. So tell me a little bit about why you think you got promoted so fast. Was it just the team was growing so fast? It was a new kind of group you got into the right time, or was there something you were doing that helped?
So I think definitely what helped that the team was growing and we were doing more deals. But I think also, I mean, the boss which I had, he was ex-investment banker, and so he very much appreciated. I wanted to work hard at the beginning. Like it was, you come to London, you are full of energy after you studied, right? So you still want to put it to use. And so I think that was something which sort of put me apart a little bit. That I did not mind staying late.
Late as what? What were the hours? Be honest.
I would say it wasn't as bad as you would have it probably in many of the investment banks, but I would say every day I would be there till, 10 o'clock would be normal, 12 would be late, and I think the latest, I never did an all-nighter, so I was lucky one. I think the latest I left was like 4 a.m.
4 a.m. But you would get in at like 8 or 9 a.m. and stay probably about a 12-hour day on average. Were you working weekends ever?
Sometimes I would do.
So it sounds like 70 to 80 hours. 70 to 80.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not easy, but not like horrific, like I've heard. But it's
could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be better too, right? So okay, so you're working hard. You had the energy. Your boss liked.
Yeah, and I had then after a year, I was actually very lucky that the boss started to work with me directly. So I didn't have any VP then between. I was an analyst still back then.
That happened to me. You work hard as an analyst, they're like, screw all the people in the middle. Let me just work directly with her.
Yeah, exactly. I basically asked like, look, could I do on something, just work with you? And we started to work together. And basically, until I was VP, it was then I then had a junior. But since after first year, I literally did not work with any analyst or any VP or director really. It was me and my boss. So
I think that's an important lesson for everybody. If you can find that mentor that's a little bit higher in that mid-level, where you can cut out and not have all these layers in between you and gain the trust and quickly get up the learning curve, I think it can really accelerate you because you're going to get a lot more exposure. You're getting a lot more like the associate work right away or within 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so you were doing great there. You did almost 6 years there.
Yeah, I really like the team, I have to say.
So why leave? So tell me a little bit about, so, you went analyst, associate, all the way up to VP pretty fast, very fast, actually. So tell me a little bit about, was there a thought, was it because it was a commercial bank? Was there a thought like, I'm going to be tapped out here? Or was the team kind of slowing down the growth? What happened, do you feel like, last year?
Yeah, it was a mix of things. I think, one, in order to grow to a director, I felt I need another experience. Like if you are in one field and in one bank, I think you are lacking a little bigger picture. Like you work on these transactions with other banks, but I think it's different if you just see it from different angle. So I felt like in order to be really sort of all-rounded finance professional, I need to see more. I can't just stay in one bank. And because if I stay and do the same thing, you are sort of locked in. I think your opportunity, once you get the director, which would probably happen then next year, I think then switching to somewhere else is extremely difficult. I think at the VP level, it's sort of the last call when you can go and do something else.
But you see MDs and partners switching banks all the time. Is that not the case?
But then in the same field, right? You then absolutely
got it. If you're in high yield, you're in high yield for good.
Exactly.
Director. Okay. Totally agree. Okay, so because then is the job flipping from VP? You're still very much like running the deal. You're running the team, but you're managing the presentation. You're overseeing kind of everything. But at the director level, are you expected to go out and source a lot more? Or is that at the VP level as well?
I had it already at the VP level, so I'd already had my clients where I would go and pitch.
That's awesome.
So would it really
Did you
make
like that part? Was that a hard transition from associate to VP for you?
I loved it. I wouldn't say it's easy.
Yeah.
Because it's very different if you go with your MD to a client and if you
Yeah.
go on your own, right? And then it's everything on you. So
Tell me about that first time you pitched to somebody by yourself. Were you nervous?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like
Yeah.
no doubt, and I was probably over prepared and over like analytical about it.
Yeah.
So, because I think the best pitch is actually if you don't open the pitch book, right?
Yeah.
That's when you can sort of have a nice chat. And I think that at the beginning it was lacking. I think it was too much, on page 3, let's discuss this, and on page 4, let's discuss that. I
Yeah.
think you need to do a few of them in order to relax and have a bit more natural discussion. But
Like building a rapport, building that trust with the clients you have, where like
yes,
you're just talking through conceptually what they should do, rather than being like, this is the yield and like you have to get to this thing now or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I get it. Sorry, continue.
no, but I love that part. Like some of my clients, I'm still in touch nowadays. It's if you sort of, I worked with one client for 4 years, right? And then even if you leave, then you still, I think that relationship dynamic I really enjoyed.
It's great. Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting to see the people who can do, at least in banking, the transition from that analyst associate and how everything shifts from like managing to selling, right? Or like the modeling, the technical side, and just the people management side to actually selling. It's a very different job.
It is. It
Yeah.
definitely is. And you can see that some people are much more comfortable, preparing materials and then rather presenting it. And that's why, like, anytime when I had my juniors, then like giving them opportunity at least to, present at credit committees in the bank or take them to the presentation if you can. I think it's super important because if you don't do that and then suddenly you become VP, they don't really know what to do.
So
So
you said once you reach director level, switching gears a little bit here, once you reach director level, you felt like you would be stuck in high yield. Tell me a little bit about what made you think that. Did somebody tell you that? And then why did you start interviewing and what kind of opportunities were you interviewing for? Tell me about like that whole thought process and then kind of how
yeah.
that recruiting happened.
Yeah, so I mean, not that someone told me that, but I think I saw it around in the
Mm-hmm.
bank that not many people switched really, like would leave at the director and not even speaking of MD level. It happened very, very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me think, like, it's probably not that easy, right?
Right.
If people are not doing it in the bank, I mean, there must be a reason. Either everybody is so super happy here, or there are limited options. And I think it was mix of it probably, but
Yeah.
there is definitely an element that it becomes harder then.
Yep.
So that was the thinking behind. And then obviously the question was, what's the next step? And I was thinking about staying at the sell side or going to buy side, which many people, buy side is the holy grail, right? That's
Right.
where everybody wants to go from sell side because you have better working hours. And so I had options both on the sell side and then buy side. And I decided for buy side mainly because I thought, what, it is time to slow down. And
But tell me a little bit about the options that you had and how you came across those options.
so this time, obviously, at the VP level, you already know some people. So you try to, through friends or through someone to get recommended somewhere else or get connections. So
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at restructuring. So through a friend of mine got interviews at one of the restructuring boutiques.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the buy side, actually, most of it came from
Like
headhunters.
Evercore or Rothschild or
Yeah,
those
something
types
like
of okay.
yeah,
So yeah,
those.
a strong presence. Okay, back in London. Okay, so you interviewed there, but that's still sell side, right?
Yeah, that's the still sell side.
Yeah. And so
And
tell
then
me
on
what
the
about the buy side? You thought I'm not going to be working those 70 hour weeks. I maybe actually be able to put in a 50-hour week.
exactly. Plus, I was lucky as well interviewing at Hedge Fund where I actually ended up where it felt definite, and it's the truth. It's very sort of diverse. It's not only like CLO, which many of the other interviews, if you are with leverage backgrounds, so in credit. On the credit side, a lot of options are on CLOs, especially now when they are
Explain that to me.
growing.
So for the listeners that don't know what CLO is, can you explain like you were coming from high yield, so you were saying a lot of the looks, a lot of the opportunities you're getting were for CLO desks or CLO funds?
CLO funds.
So can you explain
Yes.
to me or to the listeners what that is?
Yeah, so CLO fund invests in leverage loans,
Mm-hmm.
which nowadays leverage loan and high yield bonds is pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So CLO is you typically you analyze leverage loans, some high yield bonds. You typically will have one or two industry assigned to you, and you will do a credit analysis on them and recommend investing in the particular loan or
And so
bond.
why did you shy away from that and end up at the credit fund that you ended up?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I shied away, but I was a little worried that if you're in CLO, it's long only, so you only can
It's long only.
buy.
Oh, it's long only.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yep.
you can only buy the leverage loan, right? So you
Okay.
can't short it,
Yep.
and plus it's very sort of patient money, I would say. CLOs where there is not as much trading going on.
Got it.
So the hedge,
Longer hold periods, long only, a little bit more like a mutual fund versus a true hedge fund.
yes, yeah,
Got it.
I
Okay.
would say.
Fair. Okay.
Whereas hedge fund, we do CLO as well, so we have our CLO fund as well, but we also have a hedge fund where you can do anything and everything. I mean, on the credit side, not equity, but on the credit side. So you will do distressed, you will do leverage loans, you will do higher bonds, you can do CDS, you can do long, you can do short. So it's much diverse.
Got it. So you have a lot more room to learn even and learn about new products
Definitely.
and whatnot. So, okay. So you made this jump now, sell side to buy side. Tell me what was the hardest about this transition, and and
Yeah.
you mind sharing a little bit about your pay trajectory too as you went through, and did you take a pay cut jumping, or was it a big raise?
Yeah. So I mean, this definitely the transition was harder than the previous one. That's for sure, because it is different, right? And I know people around me. Some people love it. Some people struggle with it. I think I'm somewhere in the between. So
Okay.
I had to definitely adjust to a few things. I think the biggest change is, if you're part of big bank, so you always every deal you are or project you are working on, you're working with quite a lot of people, right? Different teams, you're putting it together. There is a lot of cooperation. Then you come to sell side to smaller firm, and suddenly it's you.
You mean buy
Like you
side?
need to,
You mean
sorry, buy side.
yeah? When you
Yes,
jump to the
correct.
buy side small firm, it's just like you're alone.
Yeah, you are alone, right?
Yeah.
And you figure it out. I mean, literally, my first day, I would sit down at my desk, and the MD would come to me, the PM, and she would say, "Okay, this is your first credit to analyze." That's it. Like, and then figure it out what information sources you have, whether there is a template for a model or anything, right? So you need to figure out on your own. So that's very different to banking, where I would say there is much more like if someone comes, you get all the induction and everybody takes care of you. So here you need to be much more proactive and be, I would say, self-sufficient or self-independent.
You have to be ready to go after it and do the work and self-motivate.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, motivate. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Was that a struggle for you? It was kind of a struggle for me when I jumped to buy side with the hands off. Because like I was used to an associate be like, do this, do that, or a VP, do this, and you go to somewhere and it's like nothing.
Yeah.
At least for me, was it like that for you? I mean, you were a
yeah.
little.
For me, it definitely was so that I felt sometimes I feel alone, right?
Yeah.
Like it's you don't have that dynamic around you, and plus sometimes I miss my juniors like to give some work to.
Yeah.
Because here it's like, oh, you do it, right? There's nobody else who will do it for you.
Yeah. And so, how about the pay? How about the pay going through?
The pay, it's pretty much the same as I had at the at sell side. So
was that around 100 euros by that point, or a little over?
Yeah, a little lower.
A little over 100 euros, so 120, something like that. I mean, was the base the same, or was it mostly bonus weighted on the credit fund, or is it still pretty heavily base?
It's still, I would say,
80% base, 70% base, something like that.
Yeah, I would say 50-50 sort of.
Oh, okay. So it's still heavily weighted towards performance.
Yeah.
And is that like is that like fun performance, or like how you do on your credits?
Well, so I haven't been there that long, right? So I had just one bonus, but I would say in our case, it's more not necessarily like the fun performance. There will be an element of it, but there will be also quite a bit of element how you did and how they are happy with you. But it's not like if you recommend something and it didn't go the right direction, that it means you will not have bonus. That I don't think. Like you need to.
So if you're
Then
getting around is is the base around 100,000 euros, and then so the bonus is around the same? Is that the
yeah.
okay?
Correct,
So
yeah.
it's pretty good. It's, a couple 100,000 euros. There's no joke, or is it in pounds now because you're in London, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's a good amount of pay, right? For 2 years out of school. Well, I guess you're you're closer to my age than than a lot of people on this call are listening. But great. Anything else? So I think to me, what strikes me is like you made that jump, you made that leap. It hasn't been easy, but it's been something you've been able to do successfully. Do you feel pressure, like more pressure day to day, that your analysis is like, money's on the line now, or how are you dealing with that stress?
No, actually, not really. At the what I feel still stressed because I'm given that it's a small team, so I need to do as well the trading. So if we want to buy or sell something, then many times I have to do it. So
You're
that I
doing
find
it.
still stressful.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to mess it up. The analysis, no, not really, because you always have the credit committee, and so
Got it.
you have some view. You try to defend it, but the guys who are at the credit committee, they will make the decision at the end of the day. So it's not just up to you to say, oh yeah, let's buy this.
So what's
So it's
next?
not.
What's next for you?
Well, if you are credit analyst, I think the next is being a PM, so portfolio manager. That's the next step.
Do you feel like that's typically, is that done internally, or there's sometimes you have to jump to do that from people you've seen in the industry? Is that typical?
Typically, actually, internally, it's all at
Internal.
the buy side, at least at the credit funds. There are not that many people jumping around. It's very different to sell side, where you switch banks relatively frequently, and it's normal. I think on the buy side, it's not very common that people jump from one
And
firm to another.
this credit fund is a typical LPGP structure where there's outside and capital, like
Uh,
limited partners. You guys have raised an outside fund.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but well, the firm is owned by the partners to
Uh-huh.
begin with, but the capital is coming from outside investors.
Okay. So I guess any other words of wisdom before we call the podcast? Given your long and winding path from law to credit bank and the risk side to all the way to high yield to now credit hedge fund.
No, I would say, to every sort of young listener here at the beginning of the career, try as much as you can. See different jobs within the bank if you can do the different rotations to find what you really like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to switch, never is too late. I would say I have many friends who think that at VP you can't really move. You can, and you just
Just
need.
not at director. No, just kidding. Don't wait till no.
I would say don't wait to a director. I would still stick with that, but
Yeah.
explore. I think that would be, and don't worry about change.
Yeah, the way I see your career is I feel like you could always go back to the large banks and get the job you had, and continue that and potentially go up the ladder. Whereas what you're doing now is you're kind of giving yourself just a lot more optionality to your career, having now been on the buy side. You can now, especially at a place where you're getting a lot of exposure to different types of trades and different types of assets, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why
So
I say
that's
like
awesome.
it's great to see something else. I'm very happy that I've made the move.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, and yeah, hope to see you around the forums, and we'll stay in touch.
Brilliant. Thanks, Patrick.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, Patrick at wallstreetoasis.com. Until next time.